it can be calculated. Like some of the variables, it is a moving calculation depending on the TWAP. So, well, how the percentage of EMP emitted into the boardroom. But so simple answer, yes, it can be calculated, but the result would be moving because there's a few different moving variables. So I'll kind of explain all the moving variables so you could probably see how complex and sometimes inaccurate that calculation can be. So it's really a snapshot in time the calculation would be, rather than predicting, say, half an hour out from the print or what the APR will be. So basically, it's so in terms of the percentage or the amount of EMP emitted per print, there's a few different factors there. So the first one is that the maximum amount of EMP emitted per print is based on the expansion rate percentage. So what that means is that every time we reach a certain milestone in circulating supply, there is a new expansion rate applied. So, for example, when we reach the milestone of 20 million EMP in circulating supply, the expansion rate percentage, which is basically the percentage of EMP emitted per print, it went from 1.5% of the circulating supply to 1.25% of the circulating supply when we crossed from 999,999 to 20 million. So that's the new phase that we're in. The next phase, between 20 million and 50 million, when we cross over 50 million EMP in circulating supply, that expansion rate, or the maximum percentage of EMP printed per print, will go from 1.25% to 1%. So at the moment, the calculation would be the circulating supply times the actual expansion rate, which is currently 1.25%. So let's say we've got 30 million in circulating supply times 1.25%. That would be the maximum amount that could be printed in that particular print. Now, when it comes into the boardroom, you minus the treasury allocation, which is about 40% of treasury allocation. So 60% of that would come in. Now, how that fluctuates is that the TWAP, so anything above 1.01 we will print, but at 1.01 we will print very little. So, and this is the calculation that I've been going through trying to work out with the code, because this is what I'm still trying to work out, is that basically it's a percentage above 1.01. So for example, if you go 1.01 times, so plus 1%, I think which is roughly around 1.02-ish, that 1% above 1.01, from what I can see in the code, should directly relate to 1% of the circulating supply. Now, let's say we go 1.01 plus 1.5%. It wouldn't actually get to 1.5% because the expansion rate has capped it at 1.25% between 20 million and 50 million. So that's really what you're trying to work out first, is the amount of EMP that would be emitted in the print. So those are the variables: the circulating supply times the maximum expansion rate. That's times the expansion rate. That's the maximum that could be emitted in that print. Why it may be lower is because we may not be high enough above 1.01 for it to print at the maximum of 1.25%, which is the current expansion rate. So then once that EMP comes into the boardroom, the value of EMP is the next variable. So EMP could be valued at 50 cents, it could be valued at 49 cents, it could be valued at 51 cents. So the next calculation is working out how much EMP is going to be emitted in the print, and then the value per EMP. So then you'll know the total dollar value of EMP that would be emitted in the print. Now that dollar value is that. Now you're starting to get closer to the APR percentage, because the APR percentage is basically the dollar value of EMP emitted in the print versus the dollar value of E-shares staked in the boardroom at that time. And that's also another variable. So if you were to try to work out what the potential print would be half an hour before print, but then 200 E-shares came into the boardroom to be staked within that half an hour, then the APR would drop, because there's more mouths to feed, because there's more E-shares staked. So let's say, let's go back to, we now kind of accurately know, or semi-accurately know, how much EMP is going to be emitted and the value of that EMP, because we can kind of estimate the price per EMP. Then we look at how many E-shares are staked in the boardroom and the value of those E-shares. So let's say there's 7,000 E-shares staked at a value of $1,000 each. That's $7 million. And let's say, so then we take, okay, so we know E-shares value, total value of E-shares staked is 7 million. What is the percentage of the EMP value versus the $7 million value of E-shares? And that percentage might be, let's say that percentage might be 0.75%. And then you might say, well, the APR is actually delivering at 3%. It's because that 0.75 is only one of 4 epochs that will occur in that 24-hour period. So if it's printing 0.75% each time, it's roughly 3% daily APR in that day. And so with the now, you can kind of, when I do my calculations, I'm normally a little bit conservative. I don't assume a full print. I assume normally a minimum of 85% of all circulating E-shares are staked in the boardroom. It's not normally that much, but I like to assume and overestimate that, so the APR figure could be slightly lower than what it actually is. So yeah, there's so many different variables in that calculation. So if you were to work it out, you'd have to take a snapshot in time, and a lot of them would be estimating. So you'd be estimating, where the TWAP would end in terms of then, okay, how much of the expansion rate would actually get pushed into the boardroom. You'd be estimating how many E-shares are staked. You'd be estimating the value of those E-shares by the time it prints. So there's a few estimations to work out the APR in the boardroom.